strange if I stood here in front of you this morning and I didn't say something about the potential impacts of the spending review, given the level of debate that is going on within, at the very least, the trade press about this whole subject. Now, I know that many of you here today will be from local authorities, and that for local authorities the picture is not yet anywhere near as clear when you get down to the regulatory level as it is for us in HSE, and it will be for local authorities to develop their own plans to manage the substantial changes in the funding that they will receive over the period, and it is still for us to work out how that will fit together. But I can give you a sense of what the spending review means for HSE. The settlement itself has already been publicised, and you know the headline figures. HSE is required to make a minimum of 35% savings in its dependence on public funding over the next 4 years. But back to my earlier point about perspective. This time, let's put that in context. Savings of 35% are the norm for the Department for Work and Pensions, which is our sponsoring department. So the first thing to say is we're not being treated any differently or any more harshly than anyone else. And that's, I think, an important message. And there's a significant proportion of what we do in HSE where we already fully recover our costs from those that we regulate. In the major hazards industries, approximately a third of what we do in total, we recover all of our costs. So that government funding currently represents around 2/3 of HSE's budget, not the budget in its entirety. So given that background, how do we plan to make savings? Well, first of all, we, like other organisations, will continue, and I emphasise continue, to look for opportunities to improve our efficiency and make savings as a matter of course. It's part of doing business for every one of you in the private sector. It's part of what we have to do too. The closure of our corporate activities in London 2 years ago and consolidation of those activities into one corporate headquarters in Merseyside was a very good example of achieving significant efficiency and cost savings. And I don't know how many of you can remember how much we debated at the time what this was going to mean for HSE. But we got there, we did it, and we did it successfully. And it has saved us considerable amounts of money. And we'll continue to seek to make efficiencies through better ways of working and through consolidation of our premises as part of that drive to meet cost savings, the cost savings imperatives that we've been given. But we will continue to look for ways to modernise our approach to inspection even in those sectors. Neither do we intend to change the way we conduct our reactive work, which includes inspections and investigations in response to complaints and to reported incidents. Reactive work will continue based on our well-established incident selection criteria and the complaints system. But in some other sectors, some of the remaining sectors, putting the major hazards ones to one side for a moment, with reduced resources, because that's what we will have, it's inevitable that the number of inspections we carry out will have to reduce. And this will require us to take a more focused approach to those things that really, really matter. We'll need to target our proactive inspection even more than we do now, because we already do it to a large extent on the basis of risk and the likely cost effectiveness of carrying out an inspection as opposed to or compared with other forms of proactive intervention. Because we know that in some sectors, different forms of intervention can work more effectively than necessarily going to an inspection. That said, there are some sectors where the risk profile means that proactive inspection will always remain the very centre of our intervention plans, and these will remain at their current levels. There'll be other sectors where the evidence points already towards the effectiveness of different methods of intervention, and we're going to need to explore those opportunities and develop those different methods of intervention more carefully. I've mentioned comparisons with the private sector several times already, and it's likely that the organisations you work for or with have had to face similar pressures to those that we're now facing in the past, and probably even in the present. You will know that decisions like this to change and to stop doing some things are never easy. So during this process, I want to make a plea to you today. I would urge you to do the following. Constantly emphasise and reinforce the importance of focusing the approach and the resources on those things that really matter. The things that make a real difference in terms of preventing death, serious injury and ill health. And in those areas where you as health and safety professionals and we as HSE are best placed to make the most of the contribution that we can make.